Okay, well, it's time for Superman. I've seen the posters. I haven't seen the film, but fortunately, Mark has.
Yes. So this is, I know before everyone says I've seen this already. So Superman, this is the new version of Superman, written and directed by James Gunn, the guy behind Guardians of the Galaxy, which is one of the more enjoyable comic book superhero romps. This is described as the first film in the all-new DC universe, DCU, produced by DC Studios, and the second reboot of the Superman film series. So the poster says, "It begins," which seems a bit rum, really, because for many of us, including those who recognise the John Williams theme, which is used, I mean, it began with the Christopher Reeve Superman, and then it was revived in 2000 and whatever it was by Bryan Singer's Superman Returns with Brandon Routh or Ralph, and then it was revived again with Henry Cavill in Zack Snyder's Man of Steel, which we were saying just the other week, great trailer shame about the film, and then it was trampled to death in films like Batman v Superman, with just all over the place, and then dragged through the quagmire of not one but two versions of Zack Snyder's Justice League. So saying "it begins" is pushing it. I mean, "it restarts" is more accurate, and certainly tonally, particularly in terms of its visuals, its bright visual palette, it is a restarting and a return to the sort of visual style of the Richard Donner Superman from the 70s that we all loved when it first came out. And it's certainly closer to that than to any of the sort of the DC shadowy dirge fests that we've had. In fact, the very beginning, the opening titles very specifically reference the Richard Donner version. So David Corenswet is the clean-cut, dorky Superman who, as Clark Kent, no longer flirts with Lois Lane, played by Rachel Brosnahan, but effectively cohabits with her. She knows all his secrets, including his secret identity. There is a line at one point about the glasses that he uses are hypnotic glasses, which prevent anybody else from realizing the thing that she realizes. It's the same guy. And at one point early on in the film, they're having a sort of a bit of a domestic. And she says, you're always interviewing Superman. I think I should be able to interview Superman. And he says, okay, all right. She says, right, let's do it now. And she starts to interview Superman about the fact that he has recently intervened to stop a fascistic military country invading its peaceful neighbor under the guise of liberating it. An intervention which is seen by some as, in inverted commas, unethical. Here's a clip.
Are you being serious right now?
Yeah.
You'd let me interview you as Superman.
Sure.
Ready?
Let's do it, Cronkite.
Superman.
Miss Lane.
Recently, you've come under a lot of fire for what some
it's
might.
A lot of fire,
it's a lot. Today, the Secretary of Defense said he was going to look into your actions. That's funny?
My actions? I stopped a war.
Maybe.
Not maybe. I did.
In effect, you illegally entered a country.
This is how you're gonna be?
I'm not the one being interviewed, Superman.
So, playful sort of screwball comedy tone with something maybe more serious going on underneath it.
It sounded topical as well.
Yes. So it is perfectly possible to do as I did, to go, oh, okay, so shades of Russia invading Ukraine in the setup. And there are also certain images that are in the visual depiction that you think, oh, well, that seems to deliberately echo news images from the recent media. So anyway, Superman stopped the war, told the dictator that if he did it again, he'd come back and pin him to a cactus and give him a once over. However, tech whiz Lex Luthor, played by Nicholas Hoult, looking like a cross between Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk with a hint of Stephen Miller thrown in for good measure, has been providing weaponry to the aggressors and is engaged in a campaign to get Superman blackballed as an illegal alien who came here with the intention of taking over the world. And before you can say, hang on, I can see some vague parallels with the real world here, Superman has been handcuffed, kidnapped effectively by government forces, and vanished off to a privatized torture camp dungeon in an off-grid pocket universe run by Luthor. So, tonally, it's all over the place. I mean, there's a sequence in it in which a black hole seepage causes a rip in the fabric of the time-space continuum, which threatens to tear cities and, I suppose, in the end, the whole world in half, which gives you an awful lot of smashy, crashy destruction, although they are very keen to point out that they did evacuate the city before all the buildings started falling over. And then there's one scene in which there's a fight in the pocket universe, the pocket dimension, in which Superman's dog, Krypto, and there's a lot of Superman's dog. I mean, Superman's dog is in it a lot because it's not his. Anyway, the dog, the super dog, is in it a lot. And there's a fight that takes place in a sort of protean river that appears to be leading to a black hole, and there's a sort of jellyfish, octopus, shape-shifting character. And I was watching it thinking, okay, I'm sorry. This is not a kind of Brian Cox physicist complaint. It's, I'm sorry, what did this actually look like when you storyboarded it? And there's a lot of people flying and punching each other, which always seems sort of quite irrelevant when there's a black hole ripping the time-space continuum, which appears to be threatening to tear the whole world apart. So it's all very daft, despite the apparent underlying political stuff. That, and there is also, I think, too much stuff going on, because there's a bit here and a bit there and a bit of that and a bit of, but it's all very colourful, and it is also all unexpectedly good fun. I mean, there's some comic relief provided by these robot assistants, basically doing an impression of C-3PO. There's the metahuman justice gang who are actually very funny, particularly Eddie Gathegi as Mr. Terrific. Mr. Terrific actually gets many of the best lines. There's some very nice work from Pruitt Taylor Vince as Superman's earthly father, as opposed to the parents who sent him from his original planet. And as for the central performance, I mean, it's like watching somebody channeling Christopher Reeve, he is still the high watermark of the Superman portrayals, I think. And we remember not recently, about a year or so ago, we talked about the documentary Superman, the Christopher Reeve story. And there was this sort of heartbreaking thing in it in which his father, when he told him he was getting the Superman gig, was really impressed, because he thought he meant he was getting the lead in the play, Man and Superman. Then he found out that it was Superman, and he was absolutely appalled. But as the years have gone by, we've all realised that what Christopher Reeve did with that Superman performance was really great, particularly the emphasis on screwball comedy, particularly the way in which he played the vulnerability. Well, this plays with the vulnerability. The very first time we meet Superman, he's just been beaten up for the first time. And so he's definitely on the back foot for a lot of it. And the sort of old school charm, the old movie star charm thing that Christopher Reeve has had in spades, I think you get a little bit of that in this performance. So overall, I enjoyed it. I should also say that in the screening that I was in, and this was the National Press Show screening, the film broke down not once, but twice. Wow. And the film is over 2 hours long, and the breaking down meant that the film took substantially longer than 2 hours. And each time, when we got back in and it started again, I didn't go, oh. I actually went, oh. And I think it is a great credit to the film that even with two breakdowns, I enjoyed it. So overall, it is as messy as a jelly trifle. It's like somebody's thrown, a kid's pudding at the wall. There is a weird sort of undercurrent of, as you picked up in that clip, of modern political context, but all the countries are all sort of very specifically not real countries, unnamed countries which they've made up names for. The central performance is quite nice and charming, and it's overall a relief to get out of the dirgy, dark. I mean, this is a Superman wearing red pants, and big red pants, big red trunks. So it's that sort of old throwback thing done in a modern way. As I said, it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. And I would rather that the plot had calmed itself down, and maybe that will happen in future installments. But I kind of enjoyed it I enjoyed it more than I thought I would, even with the two breakdowns.
If Superman was going swimming in France and he only had those red trunks
wouldn't
that
let
you're
him
talking about,
no, wouldn't let him in.
Not snug enough?
No, because they're Superman. They're sort of short trouser trunks, the wrestling trunks. Because the whole thing is that the idea for the costume originally came from wrestling, didn't it? That was where that was the sort of superhero inspiration. Was you take wrestlers. It's a kind of luchador thing. But yeah, no, he's big trunks.
Giant haystacks is that kind of thing. ITV Saturday afternoon.
Yes, exactly.
So before you go, thank you very much indeed for watching this review, but it is only a small part of what we do. Ain't that right, Mark?
A very small part. We do a weekly podcast from which these little tasters are taken when we review all the week's releases.
And we talk through all of those releases in great detail and with great precision.
And Simon interviews the biggest names from those releases.
And we discuss a whole bunch of stuff.
So join us by following our podcasts wherever you get yours. It's the only movie podcast you need. Kermode and Mayo's Take.
Exactly. I entirely agree with Mark. What was it called again?
Kermode and Mayo's Take.
That's very good.